Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. With us today is Coach Chris Arthurs, the defensive coordinator at Naperville North High School. Coach, welcome.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks, Coach. Thanks for having me.
Hey, glad to have you on here. You're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's figuring out data and defense. So, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself? Like, where have you coached at? How long have you coached? Maybe playing experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my going into my 10th year as a teacher and a coach at I've been coaching for 3 years as the defensive coordinator at Naperville North High School. Prior to that, I was an assistant coach at Warrenville South High School. Played football at Southern Illinois from 2006 through 2010. Played 2 years under Jerry Kill and then 2 years under Dale Lennon. Played high school football at Warrenville South High School. So that's just a little bit about my background and my teaching and playing background. Yeah, I love it. I love teaching and coaching. I've got a brother right now who's at Northwestern University. My father was my football coach growing up through youth league, and then coached at the high school, coached all my family. So football's in our blood, and football's what we do.
Hey, that's awesome. I was lucky enough. I got to coach both of my sons. I didn't coach them in Pee Wee. I'd been coaching here for a long time. They grew up on the sideline and locker room. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing because they'll hear things they're not supposed to repeat, and mom gets a little mad at dad when they repeat those things. So, but it's great to have, football's a great family game. I'm glad I got them on the sidelines. They both played offensive line. I've been a defensive coordinator, linebacker coach for, it seems like a gazillion years now, but it also seems like I just started. But, so how was that experience of playing for your dad?
It was incredible. I kind of the same thing. Like I remember growing up, he coached youth league. Actually, he started coaching youth league way before I was born. And one of my earliest memories is him coaching for the Naperville youth football team. When I want to say maybe 3 or 4. It's like he's got a picture with his 8th grade Pee Wee team, and I'm sitting there in pads as a little kid sitting there. And then my family, we moved and we ended up settling down and living and growing up in Wheaton, Illinois, and playing for Warrenville South for 4 years. And then he coached as a volunteer sophomore coach. He actually this year was going to be his first year. He was going to kind of take a back seat from 18 years of volunteering. So we loved it. He coached. I'm the oldest of 4 boys, so he coached all 4 of me and my brothers from Pee Wee League through high school, and it was. I have an 8-month-old son. Oh, sorry, 9 months old. He just turned 9 months. 9-month-old son, and hopefully he loves the game and he's into the, grows up enjoying the game and can be around the game. It's a family thing. Pretty cool. There was actually one point in time when my father was coaching sophomore football, the first game on Friday nights. My brother beneath me was playing varsity football the game after that. And then he would get in the car and drive down to Southern Illinois, Illinois State, Western Illinois, wherever we were playing that week, watch me play as a senior at SIU, drive back, and then coach my 2 youngest brothers in Pee Wee youth football on Sunday. I think he said he put on his car like 20,000 miles or so. I mean, it was crazy the amount of miles in one football season he put on his car. But I mean, I appreciate it. I loved it. And he coached me hard. He coached me really hard. He always told me he was going to coach me harder than everybody else. And I trusted that. It kind of helped me grow into a leader and a guy that loved to coach because of the relationship that we had as a father-son, and hopefully someday I have with my son.
Absolutely. I tell you what, you'll enjoy those times. And trust me, my oldest is a sophomore at Georgetown College in Kentucky, and my youngest is a senior graduating this year. And, I can't believe I couldn't wait for them to get to the high school so I could be coaching while they were there. But now it's like, man, we just started this thing, and now they're off going to college and trying to pick a college. So, if you get a chance, enjoy it. But don't forget, I'm going to tell you this, give you this piece of advice. Don't forget to be a dad.
Absolutely.
We had a rule that was called the driveway rule. We could say whatever we wanted about practice in the game until we got to the driveway, and then it was over, like whatever. Now, unfortunately for me, we only live 3 blocks from the stadium. So those trips were a little short. Sometimes Dad had to take the long way around and maybe go around the block a couple times to get everything out. But I wouldn't change anything I did. Was glad to be part of what they were doing. So, like I said, and just enjoy that time.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
I know Illinois didn't have a season. You guys are going to try to play here in the spring. I use those air quotes, spring. How are you guys preparing for that?
Yeah. So, when all the COVID stuff hit back in March and April, I'm actually the head boys track and field coach at Naperville North too. So I was actually in season coaching. We have a lot of crossover between football and track athletes, obviously. Yep. And we were in season when all that happened. And, as our season came to a conclusion, we sat down as a football staff and we're like, what do we do next? Everything's done. So we started doing virtual workouts and virtual coaching prior to the end of last school year. And then as summer kind of came around, the state had different mitigation processes that they went through to allow us to do, a gradual build up to more things, more activity. We had our contact days in the fall, which went really well. We had 30 days where we got to practice with the athletes, non-contact, 7-on-7, drill work focus. We did a lot of teaching and a lot of coaching. And, our kids were incredible during that. They were just soaking up everything, enjoying being out there. When we got done with those, we were like, man, we hope we can play because we're going to be pretty good this year. So then as we got into winter, I teach PE in the building and we do weightlifting class. So we had strength and performance weight training going. We were humming as best we could. And then, now we're at winter break and we're coming back and we're hoping to start to bring more kids back into our building and get to a point where we do have a football season. But it's a year-round process of, just like everybody's been with COVID, what can you do? Okay, right. Now we know we can do this, so let's do it. Let's do it the best we possibly can. Been really proud, our head coach, Sean Drendel, he does a great job leading us and pointing us in the right direction, and our coaching staff has worked really hard through what's, it's been a difficult time to keep our kids engaged, motivated, and doing the best we possibly can with the scenario we have with COVID-19. And again, yeah, hopefully we have a season. We're supposed to start in about 40-something days, and it'll be interesting starting a football season in long pants and a winter coat. But, we're excited if we get the opportunity.
Absolutely. I will tell you this, from somebody who got to play in the fall, we were so thankful that we got to get, 1, have a season, 2, get through the season, and, just have the kids experience that, especially for your seniors, allowing them to, have those experiences I think are huge. Indiana played, we played. Did Wisconsin play?
I think they did. I can't even remember who. Almost everybody did except us, and I'm pretty sure most of the bordering states around Illinois did.
Right.
I can't say for certain or not, but
I know the St. Louis area did not, but a lot of the state of Missouri. I have a great friend who coaches at Glendale and Springfield, I think is the name of the town. But so I know he played. So how did you guys deal with that part, especially when like everybody around you is playing, but you're not?
It was difficult, and again, especially with our seniors. We had a great senior class returning, so it was difficult. We knew that there was people around us playing football, and we weren't. So again, we just tried to focus on, we did get those contact days. So, kids were still active as much as they could. It was kind of interesting because with those contact days, all sports throughout the school year had those 30 days to use for practice. So like, I think we would usually do football Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for instance, and then a student athlete could be doing basketball on Tuesday, Thursday.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting that they were doing a lot of different stuff. It was tough, but we made the best of the situation and got better as best we could during it.
Well, I tell you, I like how you guys did that. You worked that out between the coaches, So I'm also our head boys lacrosse coach. So I'm trying to make sure that we have a season in the spring. And I told one of the guys at our state association I know pretty well, I said, we played football. We're playing basketball and wrestling. I said, you are letting us play lacrosse come spring. I don't care what else happens. We're playing lacrosse.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because our track season, like, is they moved the spring season sports into what they're calling the summer season. So those sports start early May and finish, I want to say, I just checked today, our last date for track and field is June 23rd. So it'll be interesting going, again, hopefully if we stay on pace for what's scheduled, football season, straight to a track season and finish off. The spring season is usually a little bit longer than sometimes the fall. It's kind of hidden there and there longer because it's like the end of the year, but track, we start in January, we finish in May. So we're kind of used to it, but it'll be interesting definitely going from a football season straight to a track and field and then an end of the school year. Then you're getting back to summer camp. So it'll be interesting, but we'll see what happens.
Awesome. All right, Coach. So, we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, and that's using data to coach your defense. So, I know you got a presentation for us. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen?
So, data to dominate on defense. This is our slogan. If you want to dominate, you have to dominate every day. We believe in that as a defense. We try to echo that throughout the program and how we attack each day. It's really come to fruition. We've really been able to see that as we've gone through, the COVID-19 stuff that we've been dealing with. But that's who we are. Just a little bit of background about me again. Coach Chris Arthurs, defensive coordinator at Naperville North. This is my 10th season. There's my email, my cell phone number. So when I was hired 3 years ago as a defensive coordinator, I had some experience as a coordinator in my previous role, but one thing I wanted to do was get an organized plan for how we were going to come up with game plans and how we were going to attack offenses when we got to the season, how we wanted to be prepared for our opponents. I'm a huge preparation coach. I love to coach our kids up on what we're going to be doing to attack the offense and be fully prepared. It's something I take a lot of pride in. Our kids take a lot of pride in being prepared for our opponents. And that's just a testament to them because they love football. So, why we want to have a plan, it helps stay organized throughout the season when you have that daily, that regimen of your coaching staff, your coaches on defense know what to expect. Allows for daily, weekly reflection in a season. I think that's been something very beneficial, especially with this period of time that we haven't had football. It's allowed us to reflect on our practices and things we've been doing and how we're going to do when we get to actual football again and how we're going to do them better. Keeps your staff organized so everybody knows their roles and what their duties are and what they're supposed to be doing to help come up with their game plans. Creates the best plan to attack your opponent. That's the end game. You want to have a great game plan that your kids are excited about going into a weekly opponent, and you're ready to go. Just a couple of the resources that we use for our game plans and our data collection and how we share stuff with our student athletes. Our big three are obviously Huddle. Huddle we use a ton. I've helped them do quite a few. They just launched a new beta program. I was helping them research that, how that works. So big Huddle program, Google Drive. If you're a coaching staff, I highly encourage you to sign up for Google Gmail, create an account, get your staff on it. It allows a lot of collaboration and sharing amongst resources, helps you keep organized, can access materials on different devices. It's a great resource. And then one thing I do a lot of is it's called a snipping tool. It's a tool that you can use where you can it's an add-on on the bottom of your desktop, and you turn it on and it creates a screenshot of your screen, and you just boop, 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 and you can cut anything on your screen and paste it where you want it. So those are kind of three things that I use a lot for the different resources that we provide for our student athletes. So just talking about our game plan timeline and how we structure where we're going and what we're going to be doing throughout the week. We always say that our game week starts on Saturday, 24 hours after our game. At that point, 7, 8 o'clock Saturday night, we hope to have our game from the previous week in the bag. We're moving on. We're trying to start to get prepared for our next opponent. So that's kind of our 24-hour rule that we use defensively. Starts Saturday, or something. If we play on Saturday, starts on Sunday, but always 24 hours later. Sunday's family time, work on your own. I call that my day-to-day. So on Sunday is my big data crunch day where we use Huddle, We do a lot of film watching. We're doing a lot of breakdown of our opponent using data analysis. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, our methodology for how we coach our athletes, we call it teach, practice, teach. We want to have our athletes ready, prepared. We want to practice it, and then we want to coach them up on it. And then Friday's our test day. Saturday, rewind. So just let's talking about our typical week and what do we do throughout those different days. So Monday is our first team practice, and we do some recovery work with it. It's our first day of install where we've got our athletes together. We're talking about what's to come. Tuesday, heavy game plan implementation. Wednesday, our final implementation and teaching day. Thursday, polish and review. Friday, always want Friday to be the best day of the week. We try to hype that up all the time, sending, we do some motivational exercises, and I'll go through those more at the end, but Friday is always our best day of the week. Saturday, reflect and evaluate, 24-hour rule in effect. So we divide the week up into a couple different segments. Saturday's our beginning of the week. Like I said before, Saturday, we like to look at it as the start of our game week. Our typical practice on Saturdays is 8 to 11:30, similar to a lot of other programs, training film, JV games, film evaluation, finalizing previous week, begin the upcoming week. All right. We use Huddle and Huddle Assist. If you're a coach, I highly recommend using Huddle Assist, part of your film review. It's a great investment. It's a huge time saver for us. My coaching career was I think actually the first year Huddle came out was when my coaching career started. So that's an interesting perspective that I've never done a lot of the old, film collection, but Huddle is just kind of all I know and all I've ever used. And when Huddle Assist came out, it was huge time saver for collecting, down and distance, first downs, field position. The more detailed you get with Huddle Assist, they do a great job of diagnosing formations and playbook. We're working on a defensive stat book. Team tag data. So I talked about how we collect data on different plays on Huddle. So when we look at our data through Huddle, a lot of it comes from Huddle Assist, which is great because then as coaches, we can really focus on the different things that we want to look at when we analyze a team. So our typical slide, this is obviously similar to a lot of other teams. We have our formations, we have our plays, our fronts, and our coverages. A lot of stuff other teams have used. On Saturday, we're going to start creating our upcoming opponent scouting report. Beginning of the week, Sunday, we're still working on, this is when we start to really look at and collect data and look at what we're trying to figure out that opponent can do really well. Family time, nothing football in person. We don't meet as a coaching staff, but we're texting all the time. We talk a lot. We have a lot of collaboration that takes place throughout. That's what that Google Drive, and when you have those collaboration resources where, we could be working on the documents per se, where we're just talking and brainstorming ideas for the upcoming week, a lot of different sharing. Day-to-day, Huddle scouting reports and data sets. So these are some of the basic data sets that we collect. Run pass percentage, favorite formations, favorite plays, favorite pass plays, down and distance report, and custom team report. And that's one of the things I wanted to highlight tonight was when you're using Huddle and you're collecting data, one really cool thing that I think that can be done, and if it's shown to you how to do it, is collecting your own personal data of things that you believe as a defense can help prepare your athletes to have a great game plan for what's coming for your opponent. So when I started learning from our head football coach, Sean Drendel, he talked about he's a former defensive coordinator, and he talked about how every team's got some sort of tell, something that on film their team does that 90 to 95% of the time. If you see that, that's going to be very indicative of what they're trying to do offensively. And I took that knowledge and we tried to apply it to how we look at what different teams do based off of different formations, what we're trying to collect data-wise. So one thing I really like to do, and I want to show you guys tonight, is when you're collecting data from your team, a lot of this stuff is pretty basic football stuff. You have offensive play, backfield. Let me sort out the D here really quick. So a lot of this stuff is pretty basic data information. This is all stuff that we believe is important for us we have to have this stuff planned out and looked at so we can pull those base reports that we talked about earlier. Again, if you use Huddle, they have a base reports. But one thing I want to show you guys was using the manage sets and add columns to your benefit to help create, a cut up or finding those tells in the opponent that you're going against that week. So on Huddle, when you have your managed game sets, there's a ton of these hidden columns that assess, these are in there. You can assess gaps, blitzers, but you can get really creative with different sets and things that you want to look at for your opponent. If you go to this create new set, and let's just say I'm playing a veer option team and I want to determine, based off of when they're in that split backfield, who's getting the ball and what direction that play's going or where the ball's at according to the hash. Creating a data set can really help you do that. So if I'm looking for, middle of the field or a lot of these are already in. If you don't want something, that's nice too. You can move it around. Obviously, a lot of coaches have done this. You can take all this stuff out, anything you don't want. And I just want to focus on one thing. One thing we also do it for too, I know I kind of got into that veer option set here, but we use it for tackling analysis. So we create columns that, right now the only thing that's going to be showing is one of those tells. So we have a tackle type column that we can put in different types of tackles. So getting creative with that data that you're pulling from your reports is kind of what's going to help set up what your scouting report and different resources that you're going to hand your team next week, or I'm sorry, that upcoming week. Getting into Sunday. All right. Here's kind of an example of those custom reports. One thing I also like to do using our data is I do a lot of custom reports. So as you can see here, I've got a ton of them. These are some things that I use for selecting and finding out those different tells based off of the data that I've entered for my opponent. So like one right here, we've got, offensive play by offensive formation. Go back here. Presentation set's also a nice one. So creating those custom reports using Huddle can get, I mean, it's pretty cool. You can create different things. So at this point now, you've created a whole formationally, what plays they run. And this is, one of the typical base ones, the base reports, but you can get really creative with inputting whatever data that you want to look at or that you think could be a tell or that you found, and then creating different reports using your custom data from Huddle's reports options that they have. So now we're getting into the week. We're getting back to school. I've been up, watching Sunday Night Football. Our coaches have been up watching Sunday Night Football or 60 Minutes with their wife, putting in some of their data. So on Monday, we're still in that phase where we want to know our opponent, and we use our scouting report through Google Slides and PowerPoints. What that allows us to do is create a custom report using Google Slides, and it's electronic. It can be shared out through it can be shared out through Huddle, we use Remind also for team messaging, but our athletes get a personal report that looks similar to this from our scouting report, where it's a Google slide similar to the one I'm working on, where it highlights players, their quarterbacks, offensive review. You've got offensive formations, favorite run plays. We pull this from Huddle. This is the formation report. We've got favorite run plays, favorite pass plays. So our student athletes get this electronically shared with them so they can look at it on their phones. They can, obviously we hand it on paper as well, but what we found is that the kids like to see things right now on their devices. I think that that's pretty evident. What it also does is we tell them, hey, you've got access to this stuff 24 hours. There is no reason why you shouldn't be able to look at stuff now. You don't need to have that paper copy in front of you, in your binder. Maybe you left it at home. It really allows the student athletes to have 24 hours of access to any of the materials that we share with them. Tuesday, we call it practice to dominate. So we use our practice format based off of position, and our install emphasis notes match up from our data that we've collected, where we're working on different types of techniques that correlate to our game plan. Our coaches all do a great job filling this in. This is kind of a typical Tuesday practice where we have a warm-up. That week we had a program meeting that day because we had a JV game on Monday. We do some stuff with our offense. We really focus on different technique points that correlate to our game plan. Our defense, we run a 4-2-5 defense, and we play a lot of cover 2, cover 4, cover 0, and we are a heavy technique-oriented program. So we do a lot of coaching up on technique and knowing how to be a great football player. We want to have our athletes where they're playing fast and they're thinking less. So we do a lot of our base, over 4-man front. Our coaches do an excellent job teaching our kids technique and being prepared for what they need to do and the skills and tools that they need. Another aspect of our data that we use is we create practice script simulation. So this report can actually be, we create this spreadsheet that our scout team coach that's running the game plan, he's got myself, our assistants, and our scout team coordinator. Actually, what we'll do is we'll type in a script where we're trying to recreate what a game might look like when we're playing our opponent. So we'll have this practice script in place where we'll have our formation, our plays, and the plays that the athletes are going to run from our scout team. We're fortunate. We're a very large high school. We're about 2,600 students, so we do have a lot of 2-platoon football. So we are fortunate enough where we can focus our athletes on defensive side of the football, and a lot of times we have enough athletes to run scout team, or we'll just take some of our defensive players and throw them in there as scout team players to help give looks as well. I actually think that's a great practice. I love having our guys. Early in my career, I ran the scout team for my previous school that I worked at, and it was one of the most beneficial things that I thought I did as a coach was helping see how an offense would look. And the defensive coordinator I worked under at the time, he did an awesome job of having materials prepared for what the scout team was going to do. You could tell he put a lot of time and effort into our scout team, and we do that as well. We like to have scripts that we run where our scout team or anybody that's given a look based off of the opponent that we're playing, so they're prepared with that script based off of the data. Our wristband call, we use streamless communication for our wristband. Again, this is all derived from our game plan. This all goes back to that game plan where we've collected the data, we've shared the game plan. Now we're using different resources to come up with our calls, our things that our student athletes are going to have access to. We share this again with them electronically, and then they obviously have a wristband that they wear for communication while we're on the field. So now at this point, they've got 2 or 3 resources that they can access at any time. I can shoot them out a message before school. Hey, take a look at, we had to make a slight adjustment in our wristband. Our disruption call number 2 through third level, we had to change it from this to this if it's early in the week. These things allow for collaboration to take place with our program. On Wednesday, this is one of our favorite things that we started doing. We started doing defensive quizzes using Google Forms. I love this. So during our period where we were working with our, let me see if I can find that. Sorry about that. It pulled up my my response. So during when we were working through COVID and we were trying to get ready for our summer season and what was going to happen with that, when we were starting our install meetings, we actually had our whole program working 2 times a week on offense and 2 times a week on defense. It allowed us to, allocate our resources to a lot of people working together and learning together in a group. Let me find this quiz for you. Pretty cool stuff. Man, sometimes this stuff just...
Don't worry, Coach. We have the same struggle trying to find stuff on our Google Drives.
Oh, yeah, especially with Google Forms. It's like, I don't know why it pulled me into... Here we go. So this is an example of a quiz that we might give our athletes on Wednesday after practice, where we've got our final game plan in place, our final installation. So this was a summer quiz that we did. We had our first what grade. We've got a little diagram up there. The B and C gap go between which offensive linemen. This was really early in the summer. Again, we had seniors and freshmen taking this, and you'd be surprised. You'd be really surprised to see what doing a Google quiz or some sort of quiz assessment, what your athletes know. And what that allows you to do is really kind of get a feel for, do my guys understand really what they need to be successful, and what do I need to get back and reteach? So we use these Google quizzes. They're awesome. Which technique is missing from the diagram? We're missing the 3 technique from the alignments. In our base over front, which player is responsible for a gap? So you've got your picture, which again, just that snipping tool placed into the Google quiz. You have the questions. That's your mic. Cover 2 cloud. This player is responsible for the weak side deep half, and that's our stud safety. So this is something that we do on a weekly basis with our guys, and we think it's awesome. Again, you're collecting data on what your athletes know on Wednesday night heading into that final day. So, you're prepared for those final couple days. Thursday, we're getting to our final play sheet. This is, what all of our coaches have on the defensive side of the football. So you've got your different personnel sets, your base call, long distance, your wristband for that week's on the bottom right. So again, all this is data stuff. All this is data collected to help generate these different components, starting from Sunday, working up to these final resources that you're finishing the week with. Friday, we say we want to dominate our opponent. We have visualization activities, highlight tapes. We love doing these. Again, I'll send these out Friday morning to the guys electronically. They'll have some sort of a document that when it's good for them, when they have their space, their time, outside of school time, obviously, where they can work on an activity to help prepare their mind for football on Friday night. Now we're in our game. We're very fortunate to have a great coaching staff that we believe in collecting data. We think that this process that we go through is really efficient to helping us be great coaches. So one of our assistants coaches said, you know what, let's start to do this in game. Let's create a way that we can actually collect data from our opponent in game to help adjustments, be prepared for whatever can be coming next. So we use a defensive game flow data collection sheet. This is actually, it's a Google form that we use that in the box, they're collecting data and we're looking at it on the field at halftime in the locker room to help make our adjustments for whatever we need to do for our opponent's given us. So again, this is what our coach up in the box does is each play, they're going to fill this form out to the best of their ability. Most of it's pretty quick. As soon as you submit it, you've got your quarter, play number. That's just sequential, drive number. game phase, opening drive, middle quarter, end of half, end of game, location on the field, what down, what distance. So this is kind of pre-play stuff. And then you're getting into pass or run formation, which this obviously changes based off of opponent and game week we're playing. And so each play, our coach up in the box actually submits this form. And what that does is it generates a spreadsheet where we can look at what opponents have done. We can go back and look at, maybe that third drive after a sudden change or an interception, what did that team go to? Or what was their 2-minute drill? What was their 2-minute drill? Boom, 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 boom. You can pull those plays. So that way when you get to that phase of the game, you're ready for it. Obviously pen and paper helps to write stuff down and have it down on paper. But what's really cool about this is it allows you to sort through and kind of group those plays based off of what your opponent's done on the field. So yeah, that's our Saturday night through Friday night game plan, using our data. Again, thanks for having me, Coach. I appreciate it. Coach Arthurs, there's my email if you have any questions or you're interested in any of those resources that I shared tonight. Thanks so much for checking out this presentation. I really appreciate it.
Well, Coach, I can tell you this. You're not off the hook yet because I've got some questions. Now, I told you I made up with this stuff. We do some very similar stuff. I use the snipping tool. You talked about reflection. Like, how do you do that? Like, you talked about one of the first things you talked about was doing reflection. How do you guys go about doing that?
Well, I'll just focus on that game flow chart. So what's really cool about that game flow data collection sheet is I'll put those into folders based off of opponent. So, if we're playing our crosstown rival, I'll look at that game flow chart from the previous week and see, I'll maybe take a quick look at the film and see what they did on those situations, and then compare it to kind of have a great, just have a familiarity of what they like to do against us specifically in certain situations. So that game flow collection chart that I shared, that Google form, you can create those and have those saved from your opponents from the previous weeks, from the previous seasons, to help have a game plan, every time you play that opponent.
I tell you what, I that's one of the things I thought, I'm like, oh, that's pretty slick. Because that's live data. That's, because you can't always go by film. As much as we'd like to, you can't. Film's not 100% accurate. There's a million factors to go into that. All right, Coach, how do you do I know it's hard for you this year because you're not in an off season, but think about this time last year, what off season prep do you do to help get ready for the next season?
Absolutely. So, just like everything, there's a process in that. At the end of the year, we take a look at, I spend about a week looking at each game week that we played, and how we did with that and what we did well. And I'll look at a couple different things. I like to use data for tackling. I think I shared that in one of my sets.
Yep.
Obviously when you're in season, it's hard to get into that nitty gritty of tackling. So I'll actually use one of the times where I'm watching our game film from the previous season, and on that week, I actually chart tackling in huddle. So I'll chart, missed tackles, made tackles, assist tackles, and then we use the Atavus Tackling system as our gauge. If you've ever heard of that, I
have heard of it, but I don't know a lot about it.
We love it. It's their Atavus shoulder tackling system. It's really cool. Coach Rex Norris runs it. Look them up. If you're looking for something to help teach your athletes to be great, efficient, safe tacklers, it's a great system. We really like it. So that's one of the pieces when we look back and we evaluate how was our tackling. We'll look at our play calls, what our percentage of play calls were. So each week we kind of have a different segment where we're looking at what we called, what the opponent did, how our tackling was, and then obviously you'll have that. So one or two times we're just seeing how the game went, and that's kind of my approach to watching game film too. I like to watch a game. I like to watch film when we first get it. I'll watch it one time through, offense, defense, special teams, no pauses, just let it roll. See how that team operates, see how it flows. And we'll do that too when we get to that evaluation piece. after the season. From there, I like to chart and see what did we do well? What were we good at? What did our kids really get and grasp, and what allowed us to be successful? We were at a point last year where we were kind of dabbling with a 3-4. I'm a 4-man front guy, but I played in a 3-4. I think a 3-4 has a lot of versatility through it, but we kind of moved into where we were playing a lot more 4-man front just based off of who we were playing. We play Perry Massillon, you've got to have a lot of hands down on the ground when you're playing Perry Massillon. We play a lot of tight end teams, we faced a lot of teams that could run the football, and, getting to a 3-4, we didn't think we got to it as well. So that was part of it too. What did we do? Our kids performed very well in a 4-man front when we played those teams. We'll also look at coverages. What did we do well? Do we play cover 2 well? Do we play cover 4 well? So that's the next step where we're looking at what did we not do well. And then obviously we look at, what did we struggle with? My first year at Naperville North, I actually got hired super late in the process. It was like end of July when I formally got hired as the defensive coordinator, and they had already had a system in place. So at that point it was like, hey, let's just roll with what we can and try to make it the best we can. Started off playing against Simeon High School, who had Alante Brown, who plays at Texas Tech right now, which was a interesting week 1 matchup as a first-year coordinator. But, we saw that we were struggling guarding the vertical seam pass. So we've moved into more of a 2-high safety, and that's what we base out of now. We're a 4-man front, 2-high safety defense. So, looking at the game film, what you did well, what you need to get better at, and then examining that, studying that, learning from other coaches. There's so many great resources out there on Twitter right now. So many great authors out there right now, a lot of books. I've been very fortunate to reach out to several college coaches that I know and have some nice – that's kind of been the nice process of – we haven't gotten to play football, but I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot of football over the past couple of months, which has been excellent and a lot of fun and enjoyable. So it's a year-on process, just always trying to learn and get better.
Well, a couple things. I can tell you, like, if you can't find something that you want to know more about, like, you're not really trying hard enough. There's enough stuff out there. The other one is, I'm an even front guy too, Coach. I'm with you. But I know this. There's times you have to have an odd front package because you can't do it all. And I say this 100 times. Even front guy to the core, but I know this. Even odd front guys have a little bit of even front in them because you take what everybody does best and you use them. Hey, when you're charting missed tackles, do you talk about, like, one of the things I was working on this winter for us was the type of a missed tackle? Was it an over pursuit? You do that stuff too as well, or do you just say missed tackle?
No, so we do, and that kind of goes back to. Let me see if I can find this. I'm on a new computer right now, so hopefully I can find this Atavus. Again, if you're looking for a great tackling resource, Coach, Atavus is excellent. They break down tackling into a couple different categories and positions on the field. So, you've got your profile tackle, your angle tackle, which is 45 degrees, and then they call those positive tackles. So that means that you're making contact and there's no extra yards or minimal extra yards after contact. And then they look at negative contact, which they call those pursuit, which is where you're basically tackling the athlete from behind position, or lateral tackle where you're tackling to the side. I'm trying to find this diagram right now. But so when we chart tackling, that's one thing I chart. I chart completed tackle or missed tackle in one column. I'll chart positive or negative based off of the type of tackle that occurs. And what's pretty cool with that too is once you have those positive and negatives charted, you can pull those positives and see, were they profile? Were we making great profile tackles, or if we weren't tackling good that game, why? Were we pursuing? Was our leverage wrong? Were we different things you can look at for that.
Right.
So those are the things that we chart for tackling. We chart positive, negatives, missed, made, and yeah.
All right. So you talked about huddle beta. I also try to use it, but for me now, understand, coach, I'm 29. This is my 29th year. I'm like, I could find the same stuff in just using huddle regularly than what, because I told you I'm nerdy about some of this stuff. And so I very specific. I want to see backfield set by halves. And I think sometimes it took me longer to find it. It took me longer to find it in huddle beta than it was if I just use regular huddle. Now I'm going to agree with you this. Huddle assist is a great resource. You were talking about the old tape. I'm that guy. Like we used to, I had a sheet like this, and we had a little notebook sheet, and we're writing down, wing right, slot left, $29. That's what we were doing. And now with huddle assist, they put in so much of it, it gives you more time to go into a deeper data dive to find the things. 2 years ago, we made the playoffs for the first time ever in school history. And I told everybody, I said, I swear to you, it's because we spent more time doing good analysis than putting data in. Now, is huddle assist always right? No. Matter of fact, they know me by name when they see me when they see me an email from me, they're like, oh, the old man's lost his mind. Because like for me, and this gets into my next question, like if the number one receiver's on the line and the number two receivers off the line, we call that twins.
Yep.
But if they reverse and two is on and one is off, for us, that's a different formation.
Yeah.
Because you can't, and huddle will not recognize that as something different. I'm like, no, listen to me. It is. And the same true when you do 3x1. So what we had to do was we had to go back in, and everybody, they had their own column. We broke up those 14 columns or whatever it is, and everybody just kind of double checks.
Yeah.
I'm a formation nerd. I think coaches in high school especially are formation bound.
I would agree 100%.
And so I took that one over. So how do you guys go about balancing your terminology? Like, how do you get, because like I told you, I'm not changing. The head coach that just left, he was like, why won't you call your formations and scouting report for ours? I'm like, because my brain doesn't work that way. My brain is I double call every formation. So pro open is pro open, whether the tight end flanker are right or they are left. There's a pro side of that formation and there's an open side to that formation. Now, I can find all kinds of data because people will do certain things to what I call a surface. So, yes. So like pro open, there's a pro surface and open surface, but there's also twins open. Like we found a team this year that to any twins formation, any twin surface, they were running the ball. Now, you may not find that if it was, we used to, when I did it the old way and I used the head coach's formation, there were, it was pro twins, con twins, blue open, wide open. Like there was never a consistency. And since I've done this, I'm telling you what, I know so much more.
That's awesome.
So how do you go about balancing your terminology so the kids get it?
So we teach our formations. We try to use a lot of correlation we talk all the time about gaps and numbers. So a lot of our formation terminology applies like to the numbers that we see. We try to keep it as basic as possible. And we really focus on numbers and talk about 1, 2, and 3. That's a constant. You'll always hear us talk about 1, 2, and 3. So, if our formation is, if we see a pro set, we see 1 and 2, we just talk, number 1, we've got a split end and we've got a tight end on that side. That's a pro set. If it's spread, the tight end's off the line. And so we're constantly talking about gaps and numbers with our defense to the formation. That's the thing that applies all the time when we talk about formation is gaps and numbers.
Right. And so what I've done is I will put stuff on there, but I don't ask the kids on the quiz thing. I never ask them in pro open. I say, when you see this formation, what's your first thought? When you see this surface, and I've just taught them like, hey, this is what my picture is going to be. What do I do? Right. So I think you're right. Making it relatable to the kids will help them retain it and be able to recall it a little bit better. So when you're breaking a team down, what's the first thing you go look at? So like for me, it's offense, and you had it, I saw it in your thing, offensive play by play type, right? So when you're looking at, so what's the first one of those that you look at?
I'd say the first thing that I pull from a team is what their formations are. You know, you've got to be able to get lined up defensively. That's got to be that's one of our number one priorities. We say, we call it alignment, assignment, attack. And if that first part's alignment, that's going to be what we're focusing on as a coaching staff. So first thing we pull up is formation. Again, like you said, a lot of high school coaches are formationally bound. We want to have those formations as much as possible and figure out what are their favorite formations from this team. What do we expect to see? So that's definitely the first thing we look at. From there, then we'll start to pull offensive plays by their play type, and then we'll try and pull those two together. Out of this formation, this is the play you're going to see, and this is what they're really good at.
Right.
So that's formationally is definitely the first thing that we pull.
Yeah, it's I always want to see are they run pass first, and then the next thing I do is I go look at formations, and then like I said, I double call surface. So maybe their number one offensive formation's pro open. Well, when I get to it, the next thing I do is surface by formation, and hey, every time they're in pro open, they're 97% to the pro side. I'm telling my guys, hey, we get pro formation, just know the balls are going wherever the tight end is. Right. What else? What other questions did I have? Your scouting report looks a lot like mine. We use Google Drive for the same thing. And actually our coaches, like the first year I kind of was doing it all on my own. And I said, you know what? Nope. I said, every assistant coach is going to take one thing. I don't care what it is. Like our DB coach became the expert on their quarterback. And he had that quarterback slide, like he had it down. Like, he doesn't roll well to his left, but he rolls really well to his right. Likes to throw to number 7 when he rolls to his left, all those kinds of things. I helped them become experts in one thing. So I think that helped out a little bit. We put it online on Huddle like you do, but for their top plays, we go insert, like I go find, like if let's say their number one run play is ISO. I go find 5 ISO plays of defenses that look like ours, or, maybe big gains, or if it's somebody who's doing really good, you find somebody who plays defense like you that stopped them. That's helped our kids out. Do you guys do that kind of thing?
We do. And actually that's something we're talking about doing is watching all 22 film with our kids, just to have them see football from a professional. And, we thought that might be a kind of a cool idea, just to watch games and see stuff from a, professional aspect, and watch the game of football without the, the lights and the camera and the action, and just take a look at how it's played at the professional level. So we're planning to actually do that this upcoming off season, season, whatever it is.
The other thing I always tell them is, like, football is not really Madden. Stop acting like it. Like, figure out how you can't go for it on 4th and 16 every time. You got to actually play real football, punt and play defense. So, that's cool. What reassures me is somebody who's had to do it the old school way. And I would hate to go back and do it the old school way, because I know how much more work you can get done this way. Is trying to get the younger guys to start stepping up and learning how to do that. But it's good for me to hear the young guys like you are actually doing that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? And I'm not totally whacked out. Are there some other things? I've looked at some things, in our off season that I'm thinking about doing, because I think there's even more stuff that you can find that offensive guys aren't, they're not lazy. They're going to try to find more ways to trick you and find a way to get their ball. All right, Coach. Hey, I appreciate what you've done so far. So let's go ahead and wrap up the show with Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. Why don't you tell us about the biggest game wrecker you've ever coached?
Ever coached? Whew. Man, I was prepared to share two that we coached against. A couple guys.
Go ahead. Use them.
Yeah, for sure. My first year, I talked about that first week. We played against Alante Brown, who went to Texas Tech. The next week, we played against Batavia High School, who Michael Jancy, who went to Northwestern that year. He was a senior, and Quinn Orweiler, who was a junior, who went to North Dakota State. Those two guys were absolute animals at linebackers. As a young guy, you love watching those good athletes get after it, and those guys were they were fast, they were huge. They had a backfield set where they had like 3 Division I linebackers and a running back in the backfield. There was just like a tidal wave coming at you. That was a really fun team to play and see guys like that. We've had some really good football players too. My first year, we had a linebacker, Bo Richter, who plays at Air Force right now. Absolute monster. He actually started playing football as a sophomore in high school. He was a basketball kid only. We saw that this guy's going to be huge. He's going to be a massive athlete. Played football as a junior, started as a junior, and then played middle linebacker as a senior. He was the type of athlete that when he hit you in the hole, he could have like a bad form tackle, but you were going backwards. I mean, it was incredible. The force that he was able to hit with and his strength and his speed was incredible too. So there's a couple of guys that I've been blessed to coach against that were pretty good athletes, pretty special slobberknockers and wreckers.
Right. Hey, what's the biggest hit you've ever seen as a coach?
Biggest hit I've ever seen as a coach. I hate to say it, but one that comes to mind is one that I did when I was playing back in the day. But let's see. We had a linebacker, Tommy Vitale, who played at Northwestern. His older brother, Danny Vitale, played for he was on the Patriots this past year that he played at Northwestern. Okay. Great football family. We were playing, I want to say Naperville Central back in like 14 or 15, but they threw a pass to the flat and he just, engulfed this kid. And it was such a good form tackle. It was just like, if you're trying to make a clinic of what good tackling looks like and a good hit, this was it. The kid caught the ball, boom, right in the face and just shoulder tackle. So no head contact. The kid, it was like a double leg takedown, the way the kid's feet flew up in the air. The athlete's feet flew up in the air, but no head contact. Everybody was safe and healthy. Got up after the hit, but man, I'll never forget that play too. That swing pass to by Tommy, that was awesome.
Nice. All right, Coach. Hey, last segment here of the show. It's called Bringing the House. 5 rapid fire questions. Some football related, some not. So, hey, which was the better pro league, the USFL or the XFL?
USFL.
All right. Best player not to be in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Best player not in the NFL Hall of Fame. Reggie Bush.
Okay. Which was a better football movie starring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson? Gridiron Gang or The Game Plan?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Those are both great movies. I'm gonna say The Game Plan.
Game Plan. All right.
I like that movie.
Best flavor of a popsicle?
Cherry. All
right. And as a big guy, I got to ask this question. What's the best steak in Chicago?
Ooh, Morton Steakhouse is pretty special. Pretty good place. There's one in downtown Naperville. Very good.
All right, good. Awesome, Coach. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on here tonight and talking a little ball. You firmed some things up. I got some things from you that I'm absolutely going to add into my study for next year. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, Coach.
All right, guys. Thanks for stopping in, and we'll see you next week on another episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers.